some questions. Some big questions. Can we hate less and share more love? Can we keep going until we cure every disease? Can we make sure nobody is left behind? Can we find the courage to go further than we have gone? Can we change our ways before it's too late? Can we push our limits beyond the sky? With technology and humanity, we can go further together. Vodacom.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Loeries Creative Hour. So good to have all of you join us. Firstly, very special welcome to our two guests, Lanre, Adisa, Brett Morris. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Good to be here. Thanks, Preetesh.
Amazing. For anyone who's missed the communication in terms of our chat and what we're speaking about today, we're speaking to two absolute legends of the creative industry, two people who made such an impact across our industry, across Africa and the Middle East, and especially on the African continent. And I'm looking forward to this chat just to uncover a little bit more about them and have this serve as inspiration, especially for many young creatives who are looking to eventually someday be in these roles as well. At the onset, also really, really important is to just highlight a huge thank you to Vodacom. These Loeries Creative Hour sessions are connected by Vodacom, who are great supporters of our creative industry. Thank you to Vodacom, the team, for helping connect us. Also really important to highlight is that we are now less than a month away to Loeries Creative Week. It has been a moving target. It's been a challenge getting this together, but we're finally here and we're going to get together in Cape Town, South Africa at the end of October. So for anyone who's missed those communications, we're going to be in Cape Town from 20 to 23 October. Just a reminder in terms of how it works, we're first starting off with a Loeries cinematic experience, which means that you're going to be able to come into a movie theater and embrace and watch all the best communication from across Africa and the Middle East over the past year. And then we'll be able to hold a Loeries Creative Week Awards ceremony to hand out all of those amazing Loerie Awards to the deserving creatives from our industry. But first, getting into our chat, just a reminder, Lanre Adisa is the Managing Director, Founder, and Chief Creative Officer of Noah's Ark Communication in Nigeria. And Brett Morris is the CEO, and I can say founder as well, of Nahana Communication. Am I right, Brett?
No, I'm a lifer.
Yeah, you've been there so long, I thought you should.
The
you were
FCB
also
group
founder.
in Nahana, yeah, but no, that's not correct. I'm just a lifer, not a founder.
Amazing. So maybe getting into our chat. You know, one of the useful things about these Loeries Creative Hour chats is that we have so many people who hop onto Facebook to watch these, but there are a lot of people who then come for inspiration later on. And if you're one of those individuals who are watching this later, it's such a shame you won't be able to ask questions. But if you're on Facebook, again, we can't get your questions here, but please feel free to share, and Clocky is assisting me in the background. We'll pass the questions on. But for a lot of the people who tune into this Loeries Creative Hour sessions and watch these on demand later, it's really about inspiration and trying to understand how they can actually use the lessons from some of the legends in our industry. And I think there's no two better people we can chat to. But maybe give us an idea in terms of how you started. Maybe Brett's kicking off with you. How did you get into the advertising industry? Was this a conscious decision, or was this one of these stories where you accidentally fell into it?
Yeah, it was very much the latter. I also want to start by saying that I object to being called a legend. It makes me feel very uncomfortable, and I feel like a bit of a douchebag. So I wouldn't have joined this panel if you had told me that you were going to call me a legend. But thanks anyway.
It wasn't our choice. It's what the industry refers to the both of you as. Generally so, and that's where the title came from. If we speak generally, and I appreciate the humility.
I appreciate that.
In truth, whenever we chat to a lot of people, the two of you have inspired so many amazing people in this industry to come in and nurture them. So it's not our words, it's the industry words. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, stop. You're making it worse. So yeah, it's very much the latter. I fell into the industry. I had a bit of a wayward path. I started out actually studying architecture because I thought that was the kind of perfect marriage of creativity and and business, and I would have been a terrible architect, which I discovered very soon. So I dropped out of that and went on to study law. And I realized along the way that I definitely did not want to become a lawyer. So I didn't quite know what I was going to do. And then I'd heard that you could get paid to come up with ads for a living, which I thought was a pretty spectacular idea. And I'd watch ads on TV, and there were occasional ads that did, made me, inspired me, and that I remembered and that I loved. And the large majority of them actually were not great. And I thought to myself, why do they spend all this money and put all this stuff out there? I'm sure I could do better. And I'd heard that you could study advertising, which I didn't realize. So I went into the AAA school that had probably just been founded a couple of years earlier, and did a post grad degree or diploma. And that was the beginning. And then, the rest, I kind of fell into working for some great agencies and great people. And that, I think, is really what defines a career, is who you get to work with, not just in terms of an agency, but also in terms of clients.
Mm-hmm. And what was the first agency you worked at, and what was the position at that first entrance into the advertising industry?
So I told you I'm a lifer. The first agency I worked for was FCB.
Okay, absolute lifer. Yeah.
I did have a brief sojourn. So I worked for Network BBDO as well, which was for about 3 years, which was also a fantastic learning experience. But other than that, those are the only two agencies I've ever worked with. And with FCB and the Nahana Group, it's been probably close on 20, 25 years.
Wow.
And started out as a copywriter, yeah.
We need more copywriters. That's amazing. So anyone's watching, please, copywriting is an absolute gateway into this industry. Don't forget about it. Lanre, on your side, similar kind of story. Was this something you fell into, or did you plan to get advertising?
Well, in a way, he fell into it. First, it's a pleasure to share this with you, Brett.
Same here.
I'm really delighted. I never knew anything about advertising when I was in university. Interestingly, 2 days ago, I was back at my alma mater. I was invited to talk to students of mass communication, and I had to tell them some of the story. I think it had to do more with what I was doing in the university. I studied linguistics and English. But I was into a whole lot of stuff. I was into acting. I was into creative writing. I was into journalism, campus journalism. And those things took more of my time. I felt like I wanted to write, but I didn't know where I would write and what I would write. Perhaps given a choice, I'll probably be a literary writer, more like it than, and I struggled a bit with that when I started advertising. Anyway, my creative writing professor kept saying, hey, you're going to have a struggle between your writing and writing for commercial purpose. But in terms of how I got in, Brett fell in, I stumbled on advertising, let me put it that way. I ran into somebody who was the CEO of an agency, and my dad had told him that, my son loves to write. He said, is that so? Let him write me. And I wrote him a letter, and he felt, I think you have something in you that could make a good writer. Whatever I saw, I will never know. But he gave me a list of agencies to apply to, and I didn't know any of the agencies, so I wrote to 1 or 2 of them. And while I was invited to interview at one of them, OBM, the Ogilvy agency in Nigeria, I ran into a couple of guys at a new agency. It was new then, MC&A Saatchi & Saatchi. And they said, when you're done with that interview, could you just pop in? Your dad says, you know something about writing. So I was done with that interview. I went back to MC&A, and they took me to the creative director, and we just got talking. And from talking, the next thing he was asking me, when do you want to start working? I couldn't believe it. But as I got my first job, I remember that day clearly. Cameroon was playing in the World Cup, the first time Africa was in the World Cup. So that means a lot to me. So I started my first advertising job as a trainee copywriter. So we share that in common. I started as a copywriter. And it's been fun all the way from 1990 till now. Yeah.
And so that's interesting that your dad was so supportive of this, because the strange thing is that a lot of parents don't understand this industry. Any idea why he was so supportive and why he was so happy for you to go into this industry?
Well, I think like any parent, you're just going out of university, you'll be anxious to get a job first and foremost. But he knew I could write. He knew I was passionate about writing. And unlike me, my dad is more expressive. He mixes easily with people. I take my time a little bit. And so so I think it paid off Sometimes I worry about that maybe it's a lot, but that worked out for me. So he didn't know where it was going to land as well, but I think that really opened the door for me. I mean, I'll never forget that. And I've done nothing else but advertising since then.
Amazing. You know, Brett, as we were chatting, lots of parents, and we speak to a lot of students and a lot of young creatives who highlight that the parents, strangely enough, are not very supportive of the idea of them getting to the creative industry, purely because it's a lack of understanding. Everyone understands what a lawyer and engineer may do. And I know you went the legal part, but I mean, were your parents supportive of this decision when you said, by the way, I'm not going to go into the architectural space, I'm not going to go into legal space, I'm going to go into advertising? Or were they going, Brett, what are you doing?
No, I was lucky enough. So in a similar story, my parents were very supportive. And in fact, so my late dad was an accountant and my mom is a fine artist. So I kind of joke that I was the perfect combination of commerce and art. I was bred for advertising. But my dad, yeah, I often tell the story. He gave me a huge gift in that he was an accountant. He was an accountant his entire life, and he didn't enjoy his job. And he was very open about that. And he actually, myself and my two brothers, he refused to let us study accountancy. He said, the one thing that I want you to do is to find something that you enjoy and make that your job. And that was the biggest gift that he could ever give me and my siblings. And yeah, he was actually incredibly disappointed when I dropped out of architecture because, you know, he thought that was something that I was going to love and that I was made for this kind of creative industry. And, you know, bizarrely, I'm probably the only father that's ever been disappointed when his son decides to study law. And he was right. You know, he was right. I didn't enjoy it at all. I finished the undergrad degree, but, you know, he was only too happy for me to find something that brought me joy. And as I say, you couldn't get a bigger gift from your parents. And I wish that so many other parents would give that same gift to their children.
Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, if you look at the industry, and I know jumping straight into this, for a lot of people, when they look at the both of you and everything you've accomplished and the positions you're at, and obviously it took a strong, vibrant brand communication industry and advertising industry in order to achieve this. Lanre, what would you say is the state of our industry right now? Do you think we still have the vibrancy that was there when you were younger? Do you think it's actually improved from when you joined the industry? Or do you think we're now at a point where we actually need to do a lot more than we've ever done before?
Well, I mean, I remember back then in the 90s, there was a lot of vibrance, like you said, a lot of healthy rivalry and, you know, and great work as well. But I believe that where we are today, I mean, there was some lull this part of the country or the continent at some point, but I believe where we are today, the story has changed. The platforms are all around us. The need for creativity is higher than ever before. But the competition is not just our industry, and I think that's what makes this time different. So it means that we need to raise our game more than any other thing. It means that we need to bring on board the things we know about brand building, because the trend is if we don't do that, clients find it very easy to go to some of the guys who are creating content. It doesn't matter, you know, what kind of content they create, because now everybody's thinking short-termism, and short-termism will not build any brand going forward. But what we've seen in those days, the things that build the big brands, you know, consistent big campaigns over and over, the British Airways, the all sorts of brands that we saw then, we're losing a bit of that now. So, but how do you cope in a world that is not waiting for you? In a world where every young person, you know, with a camera, with a phone can create content. I think that's where we are. So it's about our relevance. And I think it might come across as some kind of challenge, but if you look at it, you need to embrace it and see how do you be at your best at a time like this and be meaningful. And those who do that are the ones that are in demand, you know, in our industry today. So, but it's a very interesting time to be alive, I must tell you.
Do you think brands have forgotten, maybe before I ask the same question to Brett though, but do you think brands have forgotten how to build strong brands because of this world we live in where content's readily available, where consumers are so active about being able to be vocal about what they feel about your brand, that it's now a knee-jerk reaction to trying to continuously please the consumer without trying to build an experience that's going to serve them in the long run?
Well, you'll see a bit of that, but I think clients who really know their worth will seek out people who know more about branding. And I think the job also on our part is how do we connect with what is happening all around us? I think there's a bit of the advertising industry being too insulated in our own world. We need to embrace all there is out there. But more importantly, I think, is the fact that, yes, again, the other point to note is that on the part of clients, like somebody tried to do some kind of analysis of the lifespan of your marketing director. If you look at it vis-a-vis what it used to be. In those days, you have marketing directors that will be 10 years on the job or 15 years on the job. But now, I mean, they change, like a game of musical chairs. And I think that is a problem also. So on their part, there's a lot of demand to deliver. And in delivering, they seek help from almost wherever they can get. And I think, again, it's back to where we come in, how you distinguish yourself as an agency that believes, in the hardcore tenets of brand building, but also you are open to change. You are open to all the things around you. You must be the ones that bridge the gap between what they're seeking and what we know.
Absolutely. Brett, your thoughts on the state of the industry today? I mean, and this is based, obviously, thinking about from the time you started and projects you worked on, the campaigns you worked on to where we are today.
Yeah, I think it's already been alluded to. Our world has changed a hell of a lot. I think the fundamental difference is there's so much more to include in the media mix, which is not always a good thing. So I think we lost our way for a while, to be blunt. I think I'm starting to see that swing, and we became obsessed with chasing these shiny pennies and wanting to be on a media just because it was new, as opposed to asking the question of why we're there and what is the creative idea at the center of this campaign. And that for me is the most important thing. And I think absolutely the industry lost its way. We started worrying about the technical stuff as opposed to the creativity. And not that technical stuff is not important. I always have to qualify this. I don't want to come across as a Luddite. Obviously, you need to be present in a way that is engages with your customers at every single touch point in the right way. So I think we started chasing content for content's sake. And I think we started chasing metrics for metrics' sake, as opposed to what are the fundamentals of building a brand. And that hasn't changed. And thankfully, I'm starting to see that come back. And to be honest, I'll say this, it's probably a bit controversial, but I think it's actually clients who drive this. All of the best work I've ever been involved in are clients that want creativity.
Yeah.
I've been involved in a lot of business pitches over the last while where we're presenting how we work, like our internal operations, like how are you going to cope with the scale of what we do, which again is important. But unless you're focusing on the thing that holds all of that together, a great idea, it's actually immaterial. And I think clients have been choosing agencies based on technical capability rather than creativity, but they're starting to see the downfall there, because it's those creative ideas that you were talking about earlier, those big thoughts that can elevate everything that you communicate, but not if we don't focus on that. And again, I've been lucky enough to work with great clients, I still do, who value creativity and want to make that connection first and foremost. Then we wrap everything around that. And I think that's starting to happen again, but I think the clients that are focusing on commoditizing what we do and worrying about just covering everything with, frankly, stuff that is not making an impact, it's becoming wallpaper. We've just extended the wallpaper. We're wallpapering a much bigger wall, and that's not helpful. We want stuff that cuts through, and we want stuff that's going to inspire and shift. And I'm starting to see that come back. And the reason it's coming back, it's obvious, right? Because, as you said, the more we proliferate, the more creativity we need, because it's the only way you're going to cut through. So that's the thing I think we need to be getting our industry to focus on again. And again, I say it's controversial. It's not really controversial. Clients have to want that from their agency. You can't, this is a dodgy analogy, but you can't put a gold miner in a coal mine and expect them to find gold. You need to decide, do you want coal or do you want gold? And the gold is the stuff that's going to shine, that's going to make you famous. But don't expect to put a gold mine in a coal mine and go, where's my gold? You haven't given them the opportunity. And I think that's our responsibility as an agency and with our clients as partners, is to create an environment for creativity to thrive. And I think we've let that slip.
Do we have, I mean, and Lanre, do you want to come in here? Do you
Yeah, I
think
mean, I
brands
agree.
will
I agree
understand?
with him on
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I believe it comes from, I mean, in my experience as well, and very recent experience with the agency, the clients that have actually done well are those that actually desire, to have something different. And we have some live examples. I remember a particular client of ours, and when they approached us, they said they wanted to be the most loved brand, and I thought they were joking or something. But I could see on their part also the willingness to, to roll their sleeves and be part of that process. And if you don't have them driving it with you, you're not going to get anywhere in the real sense of it. And in a short time of doing that, they were able to not just change things in their category, but beyond their category, and they became the reference point for the industry, so to say. So I think it's got to be like that. There must be hunger on both sides, hunger to make a difference, and if you have that, it doesn't matter what platform you have to work with. You'll definitely make a change. Yeah.
So Brett, not looking, obviously, with both of you not looking at your particular agency and the brands that you work with, but let's just look at, across Africa and the Middle East, since that's where we work, or if you want specifically Nigeria and Kenya. Do you think there's that, as Lanre has mentioned, Brett, is there a hunger? Do you see there's hunger from brands to be absolutely creative? And do they still, they may value and they may say they value creativity, but is that coming across in the work that we're actually seeing when you're consuming it on your computer, on your television, or in the billboard that you're passing?
Definitely. I mean, as I say, I'm lucky enough to work with those kinds of clients now, and I have in the past. And that's as much a part of our success as anything. But yes, they definitely are there, and there's an obvious reason for it. Take television advertising, and I know it's unfashionable to talk about television, but it's still a powerful medium, film. In South Africa, as an example, 80% of all advertising on TV goes unnoticed. 80%. So in other words, people can't link what they've seen to the brand that they saw. That means only 20%, so 8 out of every 10 rand that is spent. I mean, that's crazy. And that means that we have a responsibility as agencies to grow that 20%, but to make sure we're in that 20%. And all the clients that are the most successful clients that I've ever worked with currently as well know that. And you said it, they want to be loved as a brand. And it's not just a nice to have. It's not just that you want to make cool ads. It's because you want people to have a strong emotional connection with you. And we've only discovered in the last decade, there was that sort of joke about, I know that half of my advertising budget works, I'm just not sure which half. And I don't understand why advertising works. But now we know there's science that has helped us understand why emotional advertising has worked. Neuroscience. There have been economists who have won Nobel Prizes based on the fact that we are fundamentally emotional creatures as human beings. 95% of all of our decisions are based on what feels right at the time. We base our decisions on emotion, even though we think that we rationalize it after the fact. This is not an opinion. It's a scientifically proven fact, and that's why emotion is so powerful in decision making, and that is why it's so important to have an emotional connection with your audience. And I think that clients that understand that are currently in that 20%, that are fighting to be noticed and loved, and that's an important word, to be loved, not just noticed, are the ones that will be successful as marketing-led companies. And I think those that are sitting in the 80% need to ask themselves, what are they communicating, and why are they getting that wrong?
And Lanre, are you seeing other budgets matching this? So obviously every brand wants to be big and they want to be bright and shiny and noticed, but are the budgets matching these aspirations that they're speaking about right now?
I mean, it all depends on the category you're dealing with. Certain categories, of course, you can't help but have the budget to do what. Even in those categories, my experience is that budgets are very important for everybody, but it is not so much about the budget. I think it's about the ideas that are driving, what we do. I've seen instances where a particular client of ours have had to do less in terms of what they spend on media than when we started out, because the work was such that they were getting more, more bang for their buck, so to say, from the kind of work that we were creating for them. But overall, the budgets are important, and the big brands are the ones that seem to have an edge in that regard. But I think our job is beyond that. Our job is to actually challenge ourselves, even when the budgets are not so big. I mean, we're not in the US or the UK, or like we've seen in the Loeries, from the Middle East, where the budgets are big to do big stuff. But where we're limited, as we are in Africa, the task is for us to see what's the best way to reach the audience, because there is still a job to do to build those brands, based on what we have. And those things are the things that bring out the best in us, in my opinion, aside from whatever, big budgets can do to the bottom line for the agency. So the budgets, especially now, coming from the COVID-19 scenario, the recession we've experienced and all that, so budgets are not as big as they used to be anymore. A good example of that in our part of the continent, before now, most commercials were shot outside the country for whatever reason, or you got some crew down, all that. And I've seen, especially from South Africa, I've seen that has reduced significantly. But the good thing about that is that the local industry is the better for it. The production values are going up. You understand? We're challenging ourselves more. And I like that. I mean, you've seen the trajectory of Nollywood, and we've seen that coming into what we do. So getting the technical, the required and all that is getting easier than back then. The budgets were much bigger then, but we're not developing the local economy. We're not developing the industry. But now we're doing that with a lower budget than back then. So there's a mix, but and I think for me personally, it's something to be happy about, really. Even though, yes, we all desire to have a bigger budget at some point. Yeah.
Brett, your thoughts in terms of budgets, in terms of creating the work that needs to be created today?
Yeah, look, I think, the times have changed, and, businesses are under pressure, and particularly the times we're in right now. But, marketing-led companies will always spend because they know that they need to fight for their share of voice. I think to our earlier conversation, though, what we should be focusing on is doing less, but doing that better. So part of the reason that budgets are thin is because they're being spread thinly, and not necessarily always, for the right reasons. Just to plaster something over everything that you need to tick off your list, as opposed to, where is the best impact for this idea? Is the idea strong enough to make an impact for a start, but where's the best impact for that idea to go? And I think, we always need to be questioning how we spend our clients' money. We have a responsibility to spend it as if it's our own. So it's certainly not just like, let's make cool stuff and see what happens. There is some science behind it. And we do need to be smarter about how we spend and challenge ourselves to think smart. That's what we paid for as creative agencies. That's the creative part, not just the output. There's another great little saying, which I love, which is, we don't have a lot of money, so we're actually going to have to think. And that's how you should tackle every single brief that you go into. Doesn't matter how big the budget is. Spend it as if every single rand counts. And that starts, again, I'll say this, I'll sound like a stuck record here. It starts with the idea. Doesn't matter if you're going to spend 100 Rand or 100 million Rand. If you spend it on a great idea, it'll be exponential. That's the difference.
What about relationships? And maybe in this as well, Lanre, is, again, and for a lot of the young people coming into our industry, they always struggle with the idea in terms of building that relationship with the brand that they're working in, especially now in this COVID time when you can't meet face to face and you're not sitting together and you're not having those little lunches and get-togethers. I mean, what would be your advice in terms of anyone, in terms of how do you build a relationship with the brand so that there's greater trust and greater propensity to want to spend on some of the ideas? Because there are times, let's be honest, there are times sometimes brands come to us and go, those ideas are just way out for we know it's a good idea, but they go, this is just too crazy for us. But I guess the relationship is where there's a balance between a brand saying this is crazy versus something that truly will build their brand further. How do you build those relationships? Lanre?
I think for me, the starting point is being meaningful, being relevant. And I've seen that in my career. The client needs to see that in you, there's somebody who is really as passionate as they are about the brand. you are that invested in it. And when you do that, it's amazing what you get. I can give you a live example. I worked on a particular brand back in 2000 at an agency where I used to work. Mm-hmm. And I left that agency in 2003. And so I went to another agency. And in 2006, that brand came over to that agency. And guess what? When I started Noazak in 2008, that brand came to me in Noazak. And I don't think it's about hanging out or doing whatever and all that. No, I think it's about what do you bring to the table? How invested are you in the brand? You know, I think that to me is the cornerstone of it all. And we've heard about the story of Steve Jobs and the cloud and how they will always meet, you know, almost every week to talk about the brand. And it was easy for them to do the big stuff because there was a meeting of minds as regards to where you want to go as a brand. I think to me, that is the kind of relationship that we should invest in as brand builders. Otherwise, you know, you will struggle at some point. And when it comes to the crunch, when it comes to taking some of those big decisions, it's the relationship that you have that will make it easy for the client to also, you know, trust in what you're saying, to say, hey, you know what, I'll go with this. So for me, it's important to do that. It's beyond the socials. I think it's about what you bring to the table, how much you are invested in the fate of the brand.
Amazing. Brett, in your thoughts in terms of building the relationships with the various brands, I know it's really useful and we have to do it. We want to do it, but the challenge is with COVID, you're not able to meet as many people face to face as you used to previously. How do you still maintain the relationships, especially as you consider that both on the brand side and the agency side, there's always changes. There's new people coming in and going out. And especially during this time, it's very difficult to build that trust. How are you going about developing that?
Yeah, it's a huge challenge. You know, this is a global challenge at the moment. And I think it's you know, threatening a lot of relationships and businesses. And, you know, frankly, the only thing to fall back on is the strength of the relationship that you've built. And that's, I think, always the test. And, you know, we're lucky enough to have had relationships that span many, many years with many of our clients. And we work very hard at building those relationships because, as you said, it requires trust. It requires an investment in the partnership beyond a mistake, because mistakes will happen. And, you know, agencies and clients all go through phases. And it's the agency relationships and client relationships that stick through those tough times that last. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if COVID is going to be the thing that kills your relationship, then maybe the relationship wasn't strong enough to start with. But it's, yeah, it doesn't take away from the fact that it's very difficult to build relationships in this current space. You know, we've had people working on, to your point, working on business that haven't met our client face to face, which is crazy. And yes, you could argue, is that necessary? And possibly not, but only if the relationship is built on an understanding and a foundation of what you're trying to achieve together. Because too often, I think client-agency relationships are not given a chance to go beyond that potential challenge. And you see it in clients that often move, and the clients that move a lot is because they're not confronting what it is that the fundamental challenges with the business. So I guess there's no silver bullet to this answer to this question, but my appeal to agencies and clients is to, you know, figure out what it is that's keeping that relationship together and what it is that you're fighting for as a team. Because you're fighting for different things. It doesn't matter if it's COVID. It doesn't matter if it's what it is. You're not going to last. Again, if you're hiring, that crap analogy, if you're hiring gold miners and putting them in a coal mine, you know, it's always going to be a problem. But if you both agree that actually we're mining for gold here, we want gold, that's what we're after, then your relationship should be able to survive whatever the circumstances.
Great. I also want to change now, just looking at the agency environment and looking at that is obviously both of you are leaders at two amazing agencies. And I'm sure you're hiring during this time. How difficult is it? And maybe Lanre is telling you, how difficult is it maintaining the relationships within the agency, especially since I'm not too sure of the situation, but you may have hired people that you haven't even met, or somebody in your team has hired somebody that you haven't even met as yet, and you're working apart. How are you maintaining the cohesiveness within the organization during this time?
And I want to tell you one thing. I mean, these are really, really tough and strange times. I mean, in the days gone by, you could tell, you could identify everybody on your team. I'm not too sure, if I can do that very well now, especially when it comes to the juniors, the interns, and the rest of them. But I'll tell you, what we've also done is, before COVID, we had certain things that brought us together on the social front. There's something we call the Acknowledge, for instance, which we do every Friday. It's like our own little TED Talk. Every Friday, 1 hour, we try and talk about anything under the sun. Anybody from the team or anybody from outside could come and talk to us. So we've tried to maintain that, all through this period. So the same time every Friday, we get together online. We still talk and we still do stuff. And I think it helped our mental health to a large degree. We try as much as we can, and we try to get people to show their faces, especially the new people. I don't know whether that helps or not, but at least it's a semblance of some kind of normalcy. But it's a tough time, I must tell you. I mean, we're hiring people, we're also losing people every now and then. So, so it's trying to keep a balance and try to make sense of this. At some point, we were able to bring some bit of what's it called? We did a bit of rotation where we brought some people back to the agency on the 2-3 day rotation. But again, the third wave came and we had to put a stop to that. So we're back to working from home. So we can only hope that maybe sometime next year, we'll have some semblance of normalcy and we can come back and do a bit of 2-3 days. But again, I mean, remote working will be with us for a long time, but at least we'd like to see ourselves every now and then. And that's the only way we can survive the new age that we're in. But tough to really get, keep pace with, where things are, at a time like this.
And Brett, on your side, I mean, do you think this remote working is something that might be something that the industry would adapt permanently, and certain people would just be in a remote environment and come in only when they need to? And how would you be able to still maintain, if that's a model we're going towards, how do you still be able to maintain the cohesiveness within the organizations, within the agency ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question and a really difficult thing that all businesses are wrestling with. I'm sure you read articles about, this is the era of mass resignations, because I think people are incredibly frustrated and fatigued, and reconsidering their kind of life choices. Frankly, it's that fundamental. Mm-hmm. And we went into this thing expecting it to last 3 months. As now we're going on 2 years, and I think people are incredibly tired and frustrated. So I think what Lanre has mentioned, that kind of stuff is so critical. You've got to make those connections, and you've got to make those personal connections as much as possible, because that's what being human is about. It's a fundamental thing. But interestingly, as much as we've seen lots of resignations, we've also seen people coming back. So I think the need to try and move is just frankly a sense of frustration and desire to get some sort of control back, and that's not going to come necessarily from how we change our remote working or even changing jobs. And I think it's just something that we're learning as we go. So there's no answer. But to your second question, I think, yeah, absolutely. I think what we have learned is that there is an opportunity to do a hybrid way of working, and that you don't need to always be in the same place. But that bricks and mortar culture, you could argue is important. It's incredibly important, particularly in a creative industry, because, when you sit in a room with someone, you can brainstorm, you can feed off each other's energy. You've all been in Zoom meetings and other meetings. A moment's silence in a Zoom meeting is awkward. But when you're sitting in a room with someone, there's an opportunity to let the thought sink in and digest. If nobody responds in 0.5 seconds on a Zoom meeting, it's like, what's going on? Somebody on mute. There's this constant low-level tension that you're dealing with, and that's not healthy. So we're going to need to get that balance right. Everybody is talking about a hybrid environment. Nobody knows what the hell that means. And for us, the question is, what tasks are necessary in person and which tasks aren't? And that's what we're going to base our hybrid working on. And we still need to figure that out. I think it's going to be a lot of trial and error. But what we have realized, I suppose, overall, is that we can embrace flexibility. We've had to be flexible. You know, if you'd asked me a couple of years ago, excuse me, how long will it take you to take your entire organization remote? I would have told you months, maybe a year. And everybody did it in a matter of weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that flexibility is now inbuilt, but now we've got to take the best of it and get that hybrid thing right. And I'm excited about it. I think there's an incredible opportunity to reinvent the way we work. We've been forced to. As Lanre says, you want to be some sense of normalcy in the world. You don't want to be constantly kind of worried about how you engage. But I'm so excited about that flexibility. I think it's given us a massive opportunity as an industry.
And I think, you know, for some of the young creatives, some of their challenges is they absolutely, they love it. They love this environment of remote working. But a concern that's been communicated even to myself as I've chatted to a few people is that we love the fact that we can do our job in this remote environment, but we're scared that we're invisible. We're not truly getting that visibility that we need so that people higher up in the organization are aware of our contribution to the projects. Lanre, I mean, as a leader in an agency, what advice would you give to somebody who's saying, hey, I'm doing the work, but I'm not sure that I'm as visible in terms of my contribution to the project?
Well, I think the challenge is for leadership in the real sense of it. And I've been thinking about that lately. We need to also, you know, take another look at the concept of the office as we've always known it. What role will the office play, you know, in this new space we have found ourselves? Perhaps it will be more of a place to connect, where we can still work remotely if we can, but you know, it stops being a place where I have a desk, I have a corner. It's a place where we can always come back and just touch base and feel ourselves out and talk about things to do with the work and outside of the work, almost like a club of sorts, in quote. You know, I think we need a bit of that. We've always desired, by the way, for people to be able to work freely, to be flexible with their hours, but there were fears in those days. And I think the lockdown, you know, taught us that we didn't need to fear, you know, because yes, we can still be productive, you know, when people work remotely. But I think there's need for us to infuse that sense of, you know, reality, of the human, you know, thing. And the office will have to change from the 9 to 5 every day of the week thing to a place where we feel free to just say, you know what, let's meet at the office, you know, let's connect, almost like it's a Starbucks of sorts, where we can talk about the projects and talk about the ideas. How that will pan out, I don't know, but I think it needs to change really drastically for us to be able, because again, like I said earlier, there are lots of talent outside of our industry. And the more we free our own people to mingle in that world and bring back whatever they've seen into where we are, I think the better it will be for it. I think also it's a time that I've seen a lot of us, you know, become even more productive. And part of the gains is what we're doing now. I believe that 2 years ago, I'm not sure we'll probably be doing what we're doing now. The access to knowledge, the access to connecting across borders is amazing where we are today. So how do we plug into that for our businesses as well, to open them to different kinds of sources of inspiration? But the office plays a role in our lives, and that place will not be so much of officialdom. It's more of something, a social liberation of thinking.
Amazing. And Brett, on your side, for those young creatives who, as I said, enjoying this, but still stressed that they're not visible and they might be invisible in this work system we are right now. What are your thoughts as an agency leader in terms of either laying those fears or giving them advice in terms of how to be more visible?
Yeah, I think, you know, this is such a critical conversation. And I think part of the answer is around making sure that they have the space to be seen and heard. And that's the responsibility of the agency. You know, our industry used to have a natural sort of apprenticeship built in, where young people would come into the industry and, you know, they would spend a couple of years learning the craft. And now that's all been accelerated, and we sort of lost that daily mentorship. And it happens obviously as part of your operations as a company, but more difficult for young people coming into the business because they haven't learned yet. So our focus, as it always has been for a long time, and more important now, has been on, you know, creating a space to grow and mentor young people. So we have a mentorship system that's built into the way we work. We, you know, how we identify, how we create the space for our incoming people, how we mentor the next generation of leaders. And that's simply about creating space and time for them to be seen. So in an agency, physical bricks and mortar, they can kind of insert themselves, because they can walk into the creative director's office and say, I've got this idea, and hand them the idea and then walk out. Or, they can kind of get a feel of the place, where now they don't have that benefit. So they're sitting in isolation, and some of them working in tough circumstances possibly, and they're feeling very isolated. So I don't think it's the responsibility of the agency to create ambition for these youngsters, but give them the opportunity to be heard. And that's something we focus on. I think every agency should. So whether that's personal mentorship or creating programs, masterclasses, giving them the opportunity to engage and learn as much as possible, and obviously the opportunity to work on real jobs as well. That's always been the case. If you create the space for young people to thrive in your business, they will. If you put them on the margins and don't give them the opportunity, they're going to fade away. But that's certainly something we've always focused on. And I think as an agency ourselves, and in this time, if you're not seeing your young people, you've got a problem. So make sure that you're seeing and hearing them. That's my advice.
No, that's good advice. And speaking about ambition as well. So obviously, we have two amazing individuals on the screen who you both have come through the creative route into this, but now are in the agency leadership level. And I think lots of people don't realize the stresses of the positions you're in, where you're now focusing on things. So instead of the craft, which you came into the industry for, you're now focusing on all the HR stuff, the managing the P&L, managing the budgets and the relationship and everything else, and goes right up to, hey, our building that we have right now and making sure that it's fit for purpose and serving our agency. So there's a lot of elements that you're now taking care of that are very different from when you entered the industry. I mean, what would be advice, and maybe Lanre, look at this, for anyone who's now in a very creative space and who's maybe looking at you and going, I can maybe do that. Would you recommend that this is a route to go in, or would you recommend that, hey, if you're more passionate about the craft, stick with the craft and go down that route? How difficult is it to be a managing director of an agency?
Well, I'm not sure if you can hear me. It kind of froze a little while.
I can. You're frozen, but we can hear your audio clearly.
Okay, lovely.
There we go.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so I'll tell you, I mean, I never chose this willingly. Let me put it that way. I wanted to end my career as a creative. And I tell people this. My life ambition was to, end up starting an advertising school and, training the next generation, which I still love to do. I still have that plan. But at the time I thought of starting an agency, it took me a while to do that, because I never fancied myself worrying about those things that you talked about, worrying about P&L, paying salaries and doing stuff and all that. I just wanted to be a creative and do my bit and go on. But anyway, all that changed because I felt a higher sense of responsibility at some point to say, I thought my industry needed some different kind of competition. And I was hoping that in doing what I did, which was crazy back then, I might be able to inspire other people to do the same, and we can change the industry for the better. So it comes with it. So I've had to, so what I thought I didn't have, I had to, I realized I could actually do that. I thought that what clients were looking for was somebody who was passionate about, the building their brands and all that. But now you also have to create a brand. So the first thing was about, what kind of brand are you as an agency as well? What kind of culture are you engendering in the process? And to me, that's the fun part of doing what I'm doing, that the fact that you could set a vision and you could see people get onto that and, come up with different things and different initiatives, pushing that forward. The other part of it is finding the right people. I think that is what really eases the task. Are you able to find the right team at all levels? The best men, the best women to do the job. And you are setting the vision of what to do day to day. Of course, everybody looks up to what you're thinking, but I think the more of that you give back to the team, the better for you. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of things to handle. So for me, it's about setting that vision right, finding the right team to do it, and ensuring that we maintain the standard as we go along. There will be bumps along the line, no doubt about it, but I think that's what we're made for. I mean, this is what we do for brands. So when those bombs do come up, I mean, you have to rise up to it and make it happen more than any other thing. Yep.
Amazing. And Brett, advice from your side, because obviously you do have people looking at you and going, that's amazing. There's a lot of respect for everything you've achieved. And somebody maybe in your organization who may want to be a lifer in Nahana and go, someday I want to be CEO. What is your recommendation? What is your advice to those who are looking at it going, should they do it, or should you say stay away and focus on the craft and enjoy what you're doing?
Yeah, look, like Lanre, this certainly wasn't the plan. I didn't set out going, I want to be CEO of this company. And it's funny you say that, because in one of the youngsters that I'm mentoring at the moment, he asked the question. He asked that very question, and my answer was, I didn't set out to be the CEO. I wanted to be a copywriter, and I wanted to be the best copywriter I could be, and that's where I focused all my energy. And that's where I think you should focus all your energy. I think, there's too much expectation on young people to possibly want to know and do everything, as opposed to, being specialists in craft, being able to be real craftspeople. So I don't care if you're a copywriter, or if you're in media, or in account leadership, or whatever you do, you need to want to be the best at what you do. You don't become the CEO or the chief creative officer by, that's not a thing that you can be assigned. That's something you earn, and you earn that by being great at what you do. Mm-hmm. So it's very simple for me. Chase work with people that make you better, push yourself to be better, and make sure that you're always pushing yourself to be the best that you can be. If you don't, then you're not going to grow into any position. Never mind aiming for the position that you think might be cool. So I love my job. I work with amazing people. I'm incredibly lucky to represent the people I do. But like Lanre, I think, one day when I'm much grayer and older, I will go back to just being creative again, because that's what I love. I love doing that stuff, but also I like championing the cause for creating the environment that allows that. And that's what I'm very privileged to be able to do. And we don't always get that right. But that's what, for me, is most important for young people. So in our agencies, they must get the opportunity to be the best they can be. And that's about, as I said, working with great clients. It's going to sound controversial, but I'm only had success because I worked with clients that allowed me to be successful, that asked us to be creative. And that's what they should be focusing on. Don't try to be the CEO. Just be brilliant at what you do.
Amazing. And then maybe just as parting shots, because we have come to the end. Lanre, just parting shots from your side, and any advice for anyone who's watching this. And again, inspired by your journey, inspired by your story, what advice would you give anyone in terms of things that they can take and use for their life?
I think for me, it's a great honor to play the roles that we play, that you can actually determine the fate of brands, of businesses, of people's care. I've seen this. I've seen brands, come from this point to that point and all that. And to imagine that it all, has something to do with, what we bring to the table. And I think it's a great privilege. And it's, I think it was Charles Saatchi that said that every ad is an opportunity. And once you're done with it, it's gone. It's about what you do to it. So I'm always mindful of that everything gives us a chance to reach within ourselves and be at our best. And that's what we love the most. I try to use the analogy of the theater. Like I said, I used to act in school. I enjoy the rehearsals more than the productions. It's about how we get to that point. It's about how we crack that. And I think that, to me, is the fun of our business, that we can sit back and say, we did that, and you're going on to the next thing. You don't know what the next thing will be and what you will be doing next. And that is a lovely thing to do, better than the job of the lawyer, like he said. We share that in common, by the way. At some point, I thought of studying law to please my parents, but it's a good thing that I didn't get to do that. I'm not sure I will love it. So this is what makes our job different. And you can't choose anything better than this. At a time like this, when there are a whole lot of platforms open to you, that you can be anything. So please be at your best and always, give the best at all times.
Amazing. And Brett, advice from yourself to anyone who's inspired by your journey, in life lessons that you'd like to share?
I think it's kind of been said. I think And I love that. I love that idea of every ad being an opportunity. I think, if you want to be creative, then fall in love with the idea of creativity. And I probably made some of my reputation on ads that nobody else wanted to do because they looked like there was no opportunity there, and I had to go and find an opportunity. And that's what we do as agencies: apply creative thinking to take something that might not have seemed like it had potential and giving it potential. And that's what you need to challenge yourself to do. So, not to the point that everything needs to be a Loeries Grand Prix. That's not possible. But it means you can make it the best that it can possibly be. It takes as much effort to make a bad ad as it does to make a good one. So why not just make a good one? And that goes for everything in life, right? So that would be my parting shot.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Brett Morris, Chief Executive Officer of Nahana Communications, and Lanre Adisa, who's the Managing Director, Founder, and Chief Creative Officer at Noah's Ark Communication. We appreciate you both. Thank you for everything that you continue to do for our industry and keeping it strong. And thanks for all of the advice that you shared today. And to everyone else who tuned in, thank you to all of you that have watched this or going to watch this. And don't remember, if you're watching this anytime soon, Loeries Creative Week is happening from the 20th to 23rd of October. We'd love to have you join us in Cape Town to experience everything that our industry has to offer. And a special thank you once again to Vodacom for helping connect the Loeries Creative Hour. Lanre and Brett, thank you so much for your time and giving up your time for all of this advice. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to meeting up with the both of you, hopefully soon.
Thanks,
you. Preetesh. Great to chat. And Lanre, good to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you, Brett. Bye, Preetesh.
Take care. Have a good afternoon. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
I have some questions. Some big questions. Can we hate less and share more love? Can we keep going until we cure every disease? Can we make sure nobody is left behind? Can we find the courage to go further than we have gone? Can we change our ways before it's too late? Can we push our limits beyond the sky? With technology and humanity, we can go further together. Vodacom. I have some questions. Some big questions. Can we hate less and share more love? Can we keep going until we cure every disease? Can we make sure nobody is left behind? Can we find the courage to go further than we have gone? Can we change our ways before it's too late? Can we push our limits beyond the sky? With technology and humanity, we can go further together. Vodacom. I have some questions. Some big questions. Can we hate less and share more love? Can we keep going until we cure every disease? Can we make sure nobody is left behind? Can we find the courage to go further than we have gone? Can we change our ways before it's too late? Can we push our limits beyond the sky? With technology and humanity, we can go further.